A wave of anticipation is sweeping across rural America. From the rolling hills to the small-town main streets, there's a palpable sense of change in the air. For decades, a century-old law has placed strict regulations on firearm suppressors. These devices, often misunderstood, have been heavily restricted, making them difficult for the average gun owner to obtain. Now that could all change. The dawn of a new era seems to be on the horizon, bringing with it the possibility of significant shifts in firearm legislation. Former President Donald Trump has hinted at potentially lifting these restrictions. His statements have resonated deeply with many in rural America, where his support remains strong. This has ignited a firestorm of excitement among gun owners, particularly in rural communities where hunting and shooting are deeply ingrained in the fabric of life. For many, the ability to use suppressors would enhance their hunting experience, making it safer and more enjoyable. Many rural Americans view this potential shift as a victory for their Second Amendment rights. They see it as a long overdue correction to what they perceive as an overreach by the government. They see it as a step towards reclaiming freedoms they believe have been unfairly curtailed for far too long. The sentiment is one of reclaiming a piece of their heritage and their rights. The possibility of easier access to suppressors has sparked hope and enthusiasm, fueling passionate discussions at local gatherings and across social media platforms. In diners, town halls, and online forums, the topic is hotly debated, with many expressing optimism about the potential changes. The prospect of change has also rekindled long-standing debates about gun control and the role of government in regulating firearms. These discussions are not new, but the potential policy shift has brought them back to the forefront with renewed vigor and intensity. As the nation awaits further developments, one thing remains certain. The potential lifting of suppressor restrictions has awakened a powerful force within rural America, one that is ready to fight for its beliefs and its right to bear arms. This movement is not just about suppressors. It's about a broader struggle for autonomy and the preservation of a way of life that many feel is under threat. The rural communities are tightly knit, and any change in legislation that affects their daily lives is felt deeply. The potential for change brings with it a mix of hope, determination, and a readiness to stand up for their rights. Local media outlets have been abuzz with the news, with headlines and radio talk shows discussing the implications of lifting suppressor restrictions. Community leaders are voicing their opinions, rallying their neighbors to stay informed and engaged. The history of rural America is rich with stories of hunting and self-reliance. For many, the potential change in suppressor laws is seen as a return to those roots, a nod to the past while looking forward to the future. As modern rural families prepare for what may come, they are teaching the next generation the importance of their heritage and the significance of their rights. Community festivals and gatherings are filled with conversations about what the future holds. The sun sets over the rural landscape, but the anticipation remains. As people gather around bonfires and walk down quiet country roads, the sense of impending change is ever present. Rural America awaits, ready to embrace whatever comes next with resilience and unity. Often misrepresented in Hollywood films, suppressors, also known as silencers, are misunderstood devices. They don't actually silence a firearms report. Instead, they work by reducing the muzzle blast, making the sound of a gunshot quieter and more manageable. Suppressors accomplish this through a series of internal chambers, or baffles, that capture and slow down the expanding gases released when a bullet is fired. Think of it like a car muffler, but for a gun. Just like a muffler reduces engine noise, suppressors mitigate the sharp, explosive sound of a gunshot. While they can't make firearms completely silent, suppressors do significantly reduce noise pollution. This makes them particularly appealing to those living in rural areas where shooting is common. The ability to shoot more quietly translates to less disruption for neighbors and wildlife. The fate of suppressors in America has long been intertwined with the National Firearms Act of 1934. Passed during a period of heightened concern over organized crime, the NFA sought to regulate certain types of firearms, including machine guns, short-barreled shotguns, and notably suppressors. The NFA didn't outright ban these firearms. However, it mandated a strict registration process, a $200 tax, a considerable sum in 1934, and a thorough background check for anyone seeking to possess them. This effectively made obtaining suppressors a lengthy and expensive bureaucratic hurdle. For many gun rights advocates, the NFA's inclusion of suppressors has always been a point of contention. They argue that suppressors are not inherently dangerous and that their regulation under the NFA was an overreach of government authority. The potential for these restrictions to be lifted after nearly a century has reignited the debate over the NFA's legacy and its impact on responsible gun ownership. Section 4. Trump's track record. A history of pro-gun action. Donald Trump's presidency was marked by a staunchly pro-Second Amendment stance. From the very beginning of his campaign, Trump made it clear that he was a strong advocate for gun rights. His alignment with the National Rifle Association, NRA, and other pro-gun organizations was evident in his speeches and policy decisions. He consistently aligned himself with gun rights advocates and took several actions that resonated strongly with this base. His administration's policies were often crafted to reflect the interests and concerns of gun owners and Second Amendment supporters. This alignment was not just political, it was a core part of his identity as a leader. One such action was his decision to end the Obama-era ban on selling silencers to foreigners. This decision was part of a broader effort to roll back what his administration viewed as unnecessary regulations on firearms. The move was seen as a victory by many in the pro-gun community, who viewed silencers as a tool for responsible gun ownership. This move, while seemingly minor, held significant symbolic value for gun rights supporters. It was a clear signal that the Trump administration was willing to take concrete steps to protect and expand gun rights. For many, it was a sign that their voices were being heard at the highest levels of government. It signaled a shift in federal policy, moving away from what they perceived as restrictive measures towards a more permissive approach to firearm ownership. This shift was part of a larger trend during Trump's presidency, where regulations were often rolled back in favor of individual freedoms and rights. This action laid the groundwork for potentially more significant changes, such as the possible lifting of suppressor restrictions. The pro-gun community saw this as a step in the right direction, hoping that it would lead to even more substantial reforms in the future. Trump's history of pro-gun actions has fueled optimism among those who support easier access to suppressors. They believe that his administration's policies have created a more favorable environment for gun owners and enthusiasts. This optimism is reflected in the growing support for pro-gun legislation and initiatives. They view his potential move to lift restrictions as a continuation of his commitment to upholding Second Amendment rights. For many, Trump's actions are seen as a fulfillment of his campaign promises and a testament to his dedication to protecting individual liberties. This perspective, however, is not universally shared, and the potential for such a significant policy shift has drawn sharp criticism from gun control advocates. Critics argue that easing restrictions on silencers and other firearms could lead to increased violence and make it harder to enforce existing gun laws. The debate over gun control remains a deeply divisive issue in American politics, with strong opinions on both sides. As the nation continues to grapple with the complexities of gun rights and regulations, Trump's legacy on this issue will likely be a topic of discussion for years to come. His actions have left a lasting impact on the pro-gun movement, and the debate over the Second Amendment is far from over. Section 5. The case for quiet hunters and enthusiasts speak out. In this section, we delve into the perspectives of those who are at the forefront of the debate on suppressors, hunters and shooting enthusiasts. These individuals often find themselves defending the use of suppressors, not as a means of stealth or secrecy, but as a practical tool that enhances their activities in multiple ways. For many hunters and shooting enthusiasts, suppressors represent not a threat, but a valuable tool and a safety enhancement. They see these devices as essential for improving their overall experience, whether they are out in the field hunting game or at a shooting range honing their skills. The benefits they cite are numerous and compelling. They argue that suppressors enhance the shooting experience by reducing noise pollution and recoil, making it more enjoyable and accessible for a wider range of individuals. The reduction in noise not only makes shooting more pleasant, but also lessens the impact on the surrounding environment, creating a more harmonious interaction between shooters and their communities. Hunters, in particular, point to the benefits of suppressors in maintaining peace within their communities. In rural areas where hunting is a common activity, the loud report of a gunshot can be disruptive. Suppressors help mitigate this issue, allowing hunters to pursue their passion without disturbing their neighbors or causing undue alarm. A suppressed gunshot is less likely to disturb neighbors or spook game animals, leading to a more respectful and humane hunting experience. This is particularly important for hunters who are mindful of the impact their activities have on the local wildlife and the broader ecosystem. Furthermore, proponents of suppressor deregulation emphasize the potential health benefits, particularly for those who frequent shooting ranges. The constant exposure to loud gunfire can have serious long-term effects on hearing, even with the use of ear protection. Prolonged exposure to the loud report of firearms can lead to hearing damage. This is a significant concern for regular shooters, instructors, and range officers who spend a considerable amount of time around active gunfire. Suppressors can play a crucial role in reducing this risk. Suppressors, they argue, could mitigate this risk by reducing the decibel level of gunshots. By lowering the noise output, suppressors make shooting a safer activity for everyone involved, from the shooter to bystanders. This reduction in noise can also make shooting ranges more accessible to new shooters who might be intimidated by the loud sounds. These arguments, rooted in practical concerns and a deep-seated respect for responsible gun ownership, form the bedrock of the pro-suppressor movement. Advocates believe that by promoting the use of suppressors, they are fostering a culture of safety, respect, and enjoyment in the shooting sports. They see suppressors not as a